welcome to another episode of
Holy Podcast.
I am Sharon.
And I'm Tingsue. And today we'll be your host and diving into one of the most hot political issues of our times. It will be the South China Sea issues. The South China Sea issue dispute involving overlapping territorial claims driven by the historicals, legals, and strategic factors. In mainly involving the China's and various countries from the Southeast Asia, the China asserts the rights through its 9 dash lines, citing the historical usage even though it lack of the proven authority under the law UNCLOS. Moving to the Southeast Asia countries, the Vietnam claimed the Paracels as parties island based on the historical evidence. The Philippines claimed the Calayan Islands group supported by the proximities and 2016's arbitration's ruling, and our country Malaysia claims a part of disparities using the UNCLOS defining exclusive economic zones in short-form EEZs and continuous shelf criteria. And at the same time, the Brunei claims it limited to the Lufius Reef within its EEZ for the fishing and resource explorations. Well, even we have heard everyone has their own versions of stories, this claim basically reflects competing interest over the shipping lanes, resources, and storage.
So basically, every country just claims that their own territory, and actually, why are they fighting all over for this land?
Yeah, I also have some question about it. Is there any law?
Yeah, that's a very good point. To answer all these popular questions online today, we have invited 4 experts to discuss this hot topic with us. Wow!
Hello everyone, my name is Kylie.
Hello, my name is Eleni.
Hello, my name is Vijen. And I am Gavin. Hello.
Nice.
So let's return to our question just now. So why are all these countries fighting all over the sea?
Yeah, if you have a big population, you need food, right? Fish is a major protein source here, and the South China Sea is like a big fish market that's full of marine life. That's why all the nearby countries want it. Second one is petrol and natural gas under the sea floor. Some say not much, but still can make money. It's valuable. Like Vietnam, our country Malaysia, China, Philippines, Brunei, even Taiwan are all interested. Energy security is a big deal lah. Third is strategic and military. The sea is the main highway for global trade. It's around 30 to 35% of the world's goods pass through here. Control the sea lane, you control part of the global economy. That's why countries want military presence to protect their interests and influence. This is all explicit value. Now, change to implicit value, the telecommunications law. Under the sea got internet cables connecting Asia to the world. So if you control the sea, you can monitor or even disrupt data flow. It's about more than just fish and oil. It's also about info and power. So you control the cables, control the ships, control the skies. The South China Sea is not just sea, it's strategy.
Thank you, Dr. Emily. I never knew that there's so much other value than the oils and the fisheries. Since there are a lot of benefits, is there any law or rules that to constrain each country's behavior?
Yes, UNCLOS defines maritime zones and sovereign right, example, territorial sea and executive economic zone, and we also can call EEZ. UNCLOS help define what rights each country can legally claim based on their coastlines rather than historical claims like the China say they have the 9 dash line.
And is there any limitations?
Actually, we have. The limitation is lack of enforcement mechanisms. Like UNCLOS does not have robust enforcement arms. Even when rulings are made, complaint is voluntary. Like the 2016 trigger decisions. For example, the China reject the rulings and has continuous militarism and constructions in disputed area.
Thank you for your explanation, Dr. Jianhui. As we can see, the UNCLOS seems to have its own limitations, and the China's aggression seems to be a bit out of control, right?
Yeah, that's true. So addressing this issue, the Biden-Harris administration launched the US Indo-Pacific strategy in 2022. So focus on keeping the region safe, stable, and fair. China has actually challenged the key rules like freedom of navigation and pressure its neighbor like Japan, Taiwan, Philippines, Vietnam. So the US is backing a rule-based order in the South China Sea, with the help from allies to show that power doesn't override the rules. So next is the maritime security. After the incident like China boat ramming a Vietnamese fish boat in 2020, the US began supporting countries like Malaysia and Indonesia with military training and Coast Guard help. So lastly, deterrence, upgrading tax and strengthening alliances and keeping a balance to prevent conflict before it happens. So in short, power, peace and partnership are the core of this strategy.
Mentioning the neighbor of Vietnam, actually the Philippines relies on Chinese investment and market demands. In realities, how does the Philippines' geopolitical positions within the Indo-Pacific strategy align with the economic needs? Specifically, how does it navigate the competitive yet cooperative relationship between the China and the US?
Philippines and China have a delicate balance. Disputed legal and territory disputes. Like China remains a vital economic partner for the Philippines, but China is one of the Philippines' large trading partner. So this creates a complex scenario where the Philippines must maintain stable economic ties with China even as strategic tensions rise. The Philippines use a hidden strategy like to balance the major power. So you can see in security with the US and economic diplomacy with China.
Exactly, Philippines is kind of balancing the both sides while trading with China but relying on the US for security purpose. It's kind of a smart strategy, but it's a tricky one. So next question, China used both of the military and economic power in the South China Sea. Rather than the Philippines, I would like to know more about how does that make it harder to actually carry out the Indo-Pacific strategy.
So, despite the international dispute, the pressure, so the Chinese continues to militarize their island with the missiles, the radar system, the airships, and also the other surveillance infrastructures. So this setup gives China a very powerful anti-access and aerial denial advantages, and it could also they also using that they provide them to having a more effectively monitor and to track and also even block the US and the allied force from operating freely in the regions, while also using the satellite and the drone to have an eye on the activity across the South China Seas. So now on the economic side, it's mainly because that China is the top trading partner for many Asian countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, and also the Philippines. So the many which make them they are not willing to take risks to avenge, and also the problem is that this country they are most often lack the resources to respond, that which limit that what they can do and to respond.
Oh, I see. So thank you for the in-depth explanation.
So here's will be the next big questions. How did the country react after the US dropped the Indo-Pacific strategy in 2022? Did it change their behavior in the South China Sea issues?
Look at two key Southeast Asian countries in the Indo-Pacific strategy, which are the Indonesia and the Philippines. So both of them are stepping up big time when it comes to regional defense. So starting with Indonesia, they've been quietly but steadily ramping up their military game. So the government plans to nearly double defense spending from 0.8% of GDP to about 1.5%. And in just 2022 and 2023, they made some serious moves by buying 24 F-15EX fighter jets, 42 French-made Rafale jets, and 13 radar systems, and totaling over $8.1 billion. So meanwhile, the Philippines is taking a more front-facing approach. So unlike some of its neighbors, Manila is openly calling out China for maritime tensions, and they are getting back up. In June 2024, they teamed up with Japan and the US for their first ever trilateral Coast Guard drill. Yeah, so let's not forget the US that has about over $1 billion in active armed arms deals with the Philippines, plus another $100 million pledge for their military support. So yeah, both countries are making bold moves, but in a very different ways. Besides that, countries like Singapore, Malaysia, and Vietnam are trying to stay as neutral as possible to avoid conflict.
Since the Indonesia is arming up, the Philippines is calling out China and doing drills with allies. Well, the other countries like Singapore and Vietnam are staying neutrals. With all of these moves, why can't the Indo-Pacific strategy stop China island building? I mean, how does the China see its role in these tensions?
Indo-Pacific strategy actually a no legally binding agreement or contract. So then, which they more rely on and focus on the diplomacy means. That mean that they have no actual right to stop the China, and also plus that the most of the island have been completed before the 2022, which year that the IPS fully launches. So it's already a fact that nothing can change, and also the US is avoiding the direct confrontation with the China military force, since if US really does it, it could have a probability to lead to a World War III. And also in the China views, the IPS is a foreign interference into the Asia and especially wants to stop China rise, and so they view themselves as defenders.
Yeah, that's right. That the strategy has no enforced power, so that's really explained a lot in this case. So last question about the law. So if China built island to claim the territory, what if the other country follow and do the same?
China's massive island building in the South China Sea has definitely made waves, and now other countries are following them. So take Vietnam for example. Since 2021, it's reclaimed nearly 700 acres of land across 10 features in the Spratly Islands. So why the sudden push? Well, Vietnam's been watching China closely, and after seeing how Beijing tends to act aggressively towards unguarded or uninhabited islands, so Vietnam is reinforcing its own with land reclamation and military build-up. So basically just sending a message to say that, oh, these islands are claimed, back off. But here's the thing, if more countries start doing this, we could see the rising tension or even open conflict. So what began as island building could spiral into a dangerous game or territorial one-upmanship, and potentially the spark for a war that no one wants.
So thank you so much for our expertise. But before we end here, we would like to listen for your opinions about how this dispute will be resolved.
Okay, actually this question, I have some personal thought on this. So I think it's pretty nice if things could maintain the existing situation, because I don't think that will resolve in a short period of time, and it seems like they haven't prepared for a peaceful conversation. So why don't they just simply keep it maintain this current situation? And another reason for this is the US and the China actually have kind of a similar military force. So if they are going to start a war, I don't think they have 100% confidence to win that. So they just don't start it at all.
This sea dispute keep escalating. It could trigger the World War III by just one misstep, like the oil rig, the naval clash, or the Blackgate could spark a full-scale war, especially between the China and the US, and could bring their old allies and the neighboring country into the war.
I'm sure they are trying do their best. It's because seeing the war is not the cheap actually. So you can see the cost, the US dollar is 4 to 6 trillions, which most countries cannot afford that. By it starts, no one stays neutral, and based on the advances, weapons, the destruction war would drop the World War II. The South China Sea is not just a regional issue, it's a global force.
Reduce tensions. When countries settle things peacefully, there's less risk of conflict. This means businesses can operate in a stable environment and trade disruptions are a thing of the past. Then we have increased cooperation and trust. So peace builds trust between countries, encouraging long-term trade partnerships and collaboration on projects. Everyone's working together. And finally, economic prosperity. With peace comes stability, and countries can focus on growing their economics. This leads to even more trade, more investment, and more prosperity for everyone involved. In short, efficient trade in the South China Sea means peace, stability, less conflict, and better cooperation.
Thanks again for our experts and for their insights for our listeners.
And this is Toy Podcast. See you in the next episode.